Alright. Just gonna start calling this Twitch channel the Netrunner commentary channel. I don't have the heart to switch over completely yet. There's too many games I want to play. It seems like the only thing I want to do anymore. For any of those of you tuning in, as always, let me know if you don't want me commenting on your games, and we'll get your name added to a list. I don't think anybody watches the beginning of these streams anyway, so I assume if you're tuning in, you're probably watching this on Twitch's video thing, where it saves the videos. Anyway, if you don't like it that some wacky guy named Chesney's spectating your games and streaming them on Twitch, let me know, and I will cease doing so. Get your username added to a list. Otherwise, things are abuzz in the Netrunner world. We're seeing a lot of new cards being implemented into strategies. A huge portion of the old card list was rotated. I think last time I was streaming some commentary on games, I was very unfamiliar with the newer cards, but I've given them all a read over now, and I'm at least familiar with them, or at least have seen them. I really want to look at Mayfly. Mayfly scares me. It's the new one that I'm trying to analyze. Really, when you look at it, it's like as good as Corroder, right? Like, Corroder's got some good efficiency. Or does Corroder start out at strength 2? I can never remember this. Corroder starts out at strength 2, right? Yeah. It has to. Yeah. Okay, so it's not as good as Corroder. Plus it costs 2 MU. Anyway, with a single Mayfly and a bunch of money, you can get into any server that doesn't use anti-AI with just a single icebreaker. Oh well. I'm really excited to see if people start using Mayfly. Anyway, let's jump into a game. Enough talking. Oh, awesome. I love this HBID. First game of the night is Ken Express Tenma versus Hospiroid Precision Design. Everyone's familiar with Ken. He likes to run events. Kind of can be thought of discounting run events by a single credit. Although now, since there are there's at least one run event that now costs 0 credits to play right out the gate. So technically that generates Ken money now, as opposed to having to rely on prepaid voice pad to discount the cost of run events down to 0. But anyway, and then Hospiroid gets this nifty little +1 hand size on top of adding a card from Archives into HQ whenever they score an agenda. That's not when the runner steals an agenda, only when they score it. Plus, please note the 40 deck size, which is not insignificant. Funny that Ken, the guy who wants to run, you think of running as moving fast, actually has a 45 deck size. Anyway, let's actually start commenting on the game itself. We saw a run on R&D from Ken in the early turn 1, as well as a legwork going into HQ. Sees an Eli, but we're clicking through the Eli. And, oh, wow. So, turn 1, Ken steals 3 agendas. One, it looks like from R&D. If that has to be where they got that, right? Yeah. 1 from R&D on a naked R&D run, and then 2 from HQ. That just sucks. And the Eli was just able to be clicked right through. That's just painful. I think that probably signifies that HB here is agenda flooded, and so they iced HQ. I mean, icing HQ against Criminal makes sense on a normal day, but yeah, I mean, what else could HQ have done, or HB have done? Oh my goodness, this is a wash. A run on R&D, trashes a Managram Skunkworks, and then another run pulls the Global Food. That is some horrible luck. Like, straight up, that is a wash game. We don't even... I'm gonna rejoin it, but, like, there's nothing else to analyze. It's just a... I don't know. I mean, I guess you could argue that in a 40-size deck, perhaps there should have been a better plan behind the mulligan, but even then, like, what can you do? We don't know what this guy's deck is, so we don't know if maybe maybe he needs more money, maybe he needs more ice, maybe he needs more something. Because he did see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards. So in 12 cards, yeah, but I can't even be that critical, right? It's like, sometimes you just draw agendas, and what can you even do? Let's hopefully find a more interesting game here. Oh, what turn are we on? Turn 4. This is fine. Alright, so game number 2, question mark. Smoke versus NBN Reality Plus. Smoke, of course, generating the stealth credits. And then NBN Reality Plus is kind of like Sports Metal, sort of. Except instead of triggering on agenda scores or steals, triggers whenever the runner takes a tag. Makes Ping, that new piece of ice for NBN, really good in NBN Reality Plus. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens. No ice has been res so far. Smoke has a Penrose on the table and a Boomerang piece of ice here. Corp goes ahead and installs a piece of something behind server 1, a 1 ice server, and then reinforces HQ with another piece of ice, probably in anticipation of the fact that Boomerang can break whatever this is. Something I really like to point out, and this is kind of counterplay around Boomerang that I don't think a lot of people realize, is if you never res this piece of ice, Boomerang can never get used, and because it's unique, I don't think you can overwrite it as far as hardware goes. So as long as the Corp never reses this piece of ice, this Boomerang can never get used, in which case it's stuck there. And if Smoke uses more than one Boomerang, those extra Boomerangs can't be used. It's kind of a neat little way to play around it. It just depends on what you have as an option available to you as the Corp. Whether or not you can afford to just keep this dead piece of ice around. Whether or not it's even relevant, we'll have to see. Anyway, Spin Doctor used to draw 2 cards, and then immediately used to, shuffle in Hansei Review, a Jinteki card, a new Jinteki card, and 1 unseen card into R&D. New piece of, I keep saying piece, new card installed in the root of server 1. If it's even called the root anymore, Nisei is changing our terminology. Not sure if that's accurate. We'll figure it out as we go. Harmony AR Therapy, already used by the runner. And that's gonna shuffle in. We're still choosing, I believe. Yeah. Creative Commission, Deuces Wild, Diesel, Dirty Laundry, and Sure Gamble. All those good cards. Mostly economy cards and draw cards, really. Actually, all economy and draws. For a cost of 2 credits and a click, you can kind of see why you'd want to do that. Get it down early. Harmony AR Therapy needs to be used when there's not very many copies of a card in your heap, or if you do use it when there's a lot of cards in your heap, you have to discard, or rather remove extra copies from the game. So that's primarily why that was used so early. Looking at the board state as far as agendas and money goes, we have a news team added to the runner score area as an agenda -1, and then you have a 4-2, so it's really 1-to-1, and AR Enhanced Security has been scored by NBN, which, even though the technically we're 1-to-1 here, NBN is definitely at a lead as far as tempo on a board state, if that makes sense, just because if Smoke ever wants to contest any of the assets that NBN drops now, she has to take 1 tag right off the bat, and immediately when taking that tag, NBN gets to gain 2 credits or get draw 2 cards. It's pretty nuts. Smoke is very disincentivized to actually contest assets now. Now, whether or not this NBN deck runs several of them, we don't really see any. I guess this technically fires whenever the runner trashes any corp card. So we're probably not going to see ice trash out of smoke, although it's possible. Probably not going to, but okay, so here actually we see a good example of it. Smoke runs HQ and trashes boom, and that counts as the trigger. She goes back in. We're not seeing any res on this ice, which is curious. NBN has 22 credits, but there's no res. I understand why there's no res on the boomerang ice. We're not seeing any reses here. A run back into HQ steals a superconducting hub. Still only worth 1 point, and immediately a tranquilizer is dropped, which is a pretty nasty program these days. It's a little bit like Tripano, kind of, except that it only de-reses instead of trashing, but it charges up quicker than Tripano, however that's pronounced. Anyway, Funhouse. So Funhouse is our Data Raven replacement, and so just like Data Raven, if you want to keep going when you run into it, you have to take a tag. So Smoke goes in here, disincentivizes the res on Funhouse with Tranquilizer. However, the Corp goes ahead and reses it anyway, and we actually see a quantum predictive, that's what it's called, right? Quantum predictive model? Yeah. Quantum predictive model behind that Funhouse, which is going to use Smoke's efforts for the Corp's advantage, scoring that for the Corp. So we're back to 2-2, tied game. Oh, weird. They moved where agenda points are now. They put it below the agendas. I guess that makes sense. But alright, turn 9 gets passed over to the Corp. Corp is taking a bit of time to decide on what they want to do. A little tough. You have this Tranquilizer here on your Funhouse, which means that every time you want to use it, after this Tranquilizer gains 3 virus tokens, it's going to get de-resed at the beginning, I believe the beginning of the runner's turn is when this triggers. Then if there are 3 or more, when you install, when your turn begins, yeah. So you can still res the ice that has been tranquilized, and it will be active during the runner's turn. It's only at the beginning of the runner's next turn that it actually gets de-resed. Anyway, a run into HQ, still no res on this outermost piece of ice. We access a game changer. Gonna trash that for 2. Hopefully Smoke realizes that that's gonna be another tag from AR Enhanced Security. Runs into HQ again. I don't like this. I don't like this primarily because if we run into another quantum predictive model, it's just gonna be scoring that out for the Corp. She then goes ahead and shakes the tag, kind of realizing maybe the mistake. Having accessed this Hansei review from HQ, goes back in again a 3rd time, sees either the same Hansei review or perhaps even a second one, goes back into HQ a 4th time. This, oh no! So this is why this outermost piece of ice wasn't being res. Immediately Smoke on last click runs HQ, but this outermost piece of ice is a ping, which when res of course gives the runner a tag. Smoke no longer having the ability to shake this tag, we're gonna have to see what NBN wants to do with it. NBN does take, because of this tag, I'm assuming, doesn't actually say what they got out of it, did they not? Oh, because the runner already took a tag from Ares earlier. Anyway, so an install in a server with an unknown piece of ice, a draw, and then a Hansei review. Now, what does this Hansei review? Gain 10 credits if there are any cards in HQ, trash 1 of them. Okay. So it's kind of like a... yeah, I don't know. I'm a little confused, though. There was this res on ping. It felt good. It felt scary. This res on ping, and then nothing came from it on that last turn. You kind of think if you were going to res if you're going to res ping on the last turn to do something with it, maybe they were hoping to draw into something that was going to let them do something with that tag. Maybe you trash the Hernando Cortez. Maybe even the Beth. That might have been worth 2 clicks and 4 credits. I'm not sure, though. NBN is running pretty lean here, down to 10 cards. A Kushik run on R&D reveals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, the full value of Kushik. Going to choose to access the AR enhanced security. That makes sense. That's a very, very deadly agenda if the Corp scores it. Another tranquilizer thrown on the ice in front of R&D, which is that IP block. Now, run on server 2 reveals a Spin Doctor. So that's just going to be res, draws Corp 2 cards, and shuffles 2 back into R&D. These tranquilizers, though, they're kind of starting to stack up. One thing about tranquilizer, though, is that they're not completely free for the runner. They cost MU, and with only a Penrose on the table, which lost its Fractor ability the turn after it was installed, Smoke can only break code gates right now. I believe Funhouse is a sentry, and this is a barrier, which means Smoke can't really get through these unless they're de-resed. Hedge Fund dropped, as well as a new card behind this unknown piece of ice, and then Preemptive Action is going to shuffle more cards back into R&D. It looks like, through the use of Spin Doctor and Preemptive Action, there are a lot of cards here that this slim 40-card NBN deck has to pull back even more of their cards, thus extending the length of their game. Certainly would be a deck that is consistent then, but you might run into scenarios where you have a hand full of Spin Doctors and Preemptive Actions and nothing much to do, if, assuming NBN is running 3 of each. We'll have to see. Smoke taking a bit of time to set up here. Drops Diesel to draw DZMZ Optimizer for extra money when she installs programs. Now, I see a lot of people using DZMZ Optimizer in ways that may be questionable. For instance, this DZMZ Optimizer needs to see 2 more programs installed before it even pays for itself. Unless you're making use of that +1 MU. Which that actually might be more the reason why it was dropped. Not necessarily for the extra money on the installs, but probably for the MU in addition to the extra money on the installs. Kind of like an Akamatsu mem chip that will eventually pay for itself. Anyway, a Dirty Laundry run on Archives does see a superconducting hub, as well as a Project Beal, but a news team. So a lot of agendas here, but the runner down to 5, or I should say up to 5, but these 2 news teams bring them from 7 down to 5, if that makes any sense. And Archive Memories is revealed, but then we have an undo click here. Very strange NBN deck. A lot of recursion, a lot of pulling things out of archives. It kind of makes me feel like maybe not the best deck overall, because there's just a lot of cards that pull things back from the bin, but not a lot of action here. What's the plan? But we have money cards. We're gonna assume there's 3 hedge funds and 3 Hansei reviews, so a lot of money. A predictive planogram, which is also money and draw. What's the actual bite in this NBN deck? This NBN deck can recur everything, but what does it do? There was a boom earlier, so perhaps the goal is to stick the runner with 2 tags and then boom them, but how do they do that? we've got ping. Ping can add a surprise tag. Is there a C-source somewhere? Is C-source even legal anymore? But I'm just genuinely curious what the corp's plan is with all this recursion here. Anyway, back over to the runner. We're gonna run R&D on this 3-tokened tranquilizer, running into the IP block, of course. There are no installed AI breakers, so this is just going to be a straight trace. Trace strength of 3, no boost. The runner just pays into that, 3 credits. Accesses the 3rd news team, goes ahead and adds it to their agenda score area. Be a great time to have stock buyback. Now, I think we saw a Game Changer trashed earlier, and that was recurred back into R&D. The corp is probably drawing right now, looking for the Game Changer. Wants to play Game Changer and gain, oh my goodness, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here it is. Gains 8 clicks from Game Changer. Drops, presumably a 5-3. Oh, is this a Beal? And then scores a double tokened Beal for the win. That was it. That was the game. The game plan, rather. Huh. So I mean, I was in being critical of the NBN deck, but it still managed to pull out the win here. And I guess when you look at it, I mean, that works. I just don't like it. Not that people playing the game need to play decks with strategies that I enjoy, but that did not feel good. I kind of feel like the corp was scrambling, and okay, so let's kind of break this down. The whole plan of the corp's deck is to kind of install a few pieces of annoying ice, score quantum predictive models behind Funhouse, ping the runner, and maybe get them with enough tags to boom them if they keep 2 tags. Otherwise, let the corp score a bunch of agendas and then Game Changer for the win. Game Changer a super Beal, which I guess worked. I mean, I can't even act like it didn't work. With such a small deck and all the recursion there, I was making fun of the recursion, but clearly that's why. This is probably the single copy of Game Changer they have in this deck. Especially with, well, we don't see a lot of influence in other places, actually. Influence is 15. Hansei reviews only 1 influence. Boom is what? What's the influence on Boom? Assuming there's only 1 copy of Boom, that's 3 influence. 4, 5, 6 for the Hansei reviews. 5 for the Game Changer, which leaves 4. There might be 2 Game Changers, actually. So I guess the plan is to just make money, bleed agendas. It's funny, I usually love decks like this. I love decks that just bleed agenda points and then turn it around, but this felt wrong. I don't know. Am I being silly? This didn't feel very, very Netrunner. This felt very. I think I know how to explain it. It felt very coin flippy. Kind of like, well, I hope I draw into the Game Changer, because if I don't, I just lose. Although if the runner trashes it, I was being unfairly critical of the recursion because it had a purpose. If the runner trashes, game changer, then you just archive memories it out of archives and then do the exact same thing. So what does the runner do to stop this? I guess they have to somehow score a bunch of points without getting to this weird location in the game where you've got all these agendas but no actual points. Maybe Smoke shouldn't have taken the news teams. Oh, Dunch. I'm so sorry, my man. I missed you here. Let me catch up on this. Yeah, Tranquilizer seems so innocent at first. But then you see it in action and it's pretty rough. I think it's probably like bad against Glacier. Well, I don't want to say bad. It's not bad against Glacier, but Glacier's going to have enough ice that the MU is going to be a problem because the runner's going to need actual breakers. Although, I don't know. Because Smoke still had enough MU to have 3 Rizekis and a Penrose on top of 2 Tranks. Is there any recursion? Yeah, and the Simulchip can bring back if the Corp overwrites this ice, they can just Simulchip the Tranquilizer back. That's disgusting. Where did all the ice for the Corp go? Yeah, I think the thing is this NBN deck just doesn't use ice. These 4 pieces of ice may be it. There might be a couple more probably straggling around here. Maybe another fun house. I'm imagining they run at least 2 pings, maybe 3. Oh, and C-Source is out. What's the replacement for C-Source? It's probably like, let's see, we can probably find it really quickly. Yeah, I noticed after reading through all the new cards, a lot of the cards feel like reprints or retweaks of old cards. Oh, yeah. You're right, this is a replacement for C-Source. When I saw this the first time, I didn't think of it that way. Okay. You can kind of see what they're doing with some of these NBN cards, because kind of the problem with traces in general and why they feel rough is because you run into these situations where the Corp it becomes such a money fight where it's just like, oh well, the Corp had more money so they win, or like the runner had more money so the Corp can't do anything. But these cards protect Funhouse and Public Trail, kind of protect both sides, as weird as that sounds, because now unlike C-Source where the Corp could just pay into it and guarantee the tag, as long as the runner has 8 credits they can technically fight Public Trail no matter how much money the Corp has. But on the flip side, it also means the Corp doesn't need to pay to boost to 8. They can just play this, pay the 4 credits. They don't have to pay the 4 credit difference between the boost strength. So they at least get a credit tempo if the runner pays into this. Same with Funhouse. It's exactly like Data Raven, except instead of it being like a trace 1, was it? What was Data Raven's trace? Yeah, no, it was a trace 3. But very similar concept. Instead of there being this trace fight, it's just a straight, the runner has to pay or they get tagged. So I guess if you go through a Funhouse, you can technically just go right through a Funhouse for 2 tags. Kind of an interesting concept. But then you get boomed. But yeah, there's another fun NBN card for this asset. It's added to your score area if you steal an agenda. Oh, what? What is this? I read all these cards, but haven't committed them all to memory quite yet. Whatever run on this server ends, the runner stolen the agendas, give the runner 2 tags. I see. So yeah, that's another good way to drop 2 tags on them. It's quite possible that this NBN deck runs that upgrade, although we didn't see it, unless maybe I missed a trash. Oh no, I'm not getting any hits. Reminds me a bit like in the old times with all the tag hate cards. Yeah, except Plascrete Carapace isn't a thing anymore. Then again, Scorch Earth isn't a thing anymore either, so thank goodness. I was really worried there for a while before I realized Scorch Earth rotated. I thought we were living in a world with Scorch Earth and ping, and I was like, great, the runner's gonna ping, or the corp's gonna ping the runner and nuke them. It's gonna be horrible. Luckily, Scorch Earth isn't a thing anymore. Anyway, game 3 of the night. Another Ken Express Tenma against a new arted, that's not a word, the new art depiction of Architects of Tomorrow. Going to want to run a lot of Bioroid Ice. Spin Doctor trashed out of R&D, I think? No, it looks like HQ. Great, Spin Doctor, the new Jackson Howard. I joke, but it's actually far more balanced than Jackson Howard was. We'll have to see how important it ends up being. Regolith Mining License, kind of an interesting mining card, sort of like Melange, except it can't be used indefinitely, but it has a much higher trash cost than Melange. Ooh, a legwork run on a boomeranged iced HQ. Oh, was that Sprint? No, Sprint is the corp card. Okay, so the legwork run into HQ sees Megalith, which Ken can't trash, and sees 2 sprints. Not what you want to see. Can't blame Ken too much for trying, but maybe... it wasn't the worst time. I feel like legwork strength lies in your ability to read HQ. But to be fair, or sorry, read how many agendas you think are in HQ. I don't know if this board state specifically gives you information on whether or not there are agendas in HQ, but it maybe perhaps wasn't the worst idea to do a legwork while there's just a single piece of boomerang dice. Might as well get in there while you can. Second Megalith is dropped. Regolith, not Megalith. Regolith? I'm gonna go with Regolith. Ken, very aggressive here. Bravado's into HQ. Why not? The corp is not rezzing this boomerang piece of ice. Axis is another one of those sprints. Drops a daily cast. Getting just a bit of money back for themselves. Has a Unity. Unity is a really nice decoder for just 2 influence. I'm actually super happy to use this in my Adam deck now. And at 2 influence, Adam can actually afford it. It basically functions like any other 1-to-1 icebreaker, +1 to break, +1 for 1 strength, except every other icebreaker you install, it gets more strength for that 1 credit. It's super strong. I mean, like, do you even use Gordian Blade anymore after this? I don't know. We'll have to see. It's even, I think, a credit cheaper to install than Gordian, but there are still a couple scenarios where Gordian Blade is better. Like if there's a bunch of code gates on a single server, Gordian Blade keeps its strength. Okay, Tread Lightly played into... What? Oh, never mind. I thought tread lightly was leave no trace. No, tread lightly. Okay, that makes sense to res. Tier, very expensive piece of ice. I see we're having some fun. Definitely then in this HB deck. Tier isn't often really a an ice that gets used in competitive play necessarily, but apparently we are going to see it in this deck, and because the Corp knew that Ken couldn't really do anything about Tier, went ahead and rezzed it. Looks like Ken broke 2 of the subs, so we only got an end the run on it. Little sad. Very expensive end the run ice. 10 credits to end the run, but hey, it's there now. It's a Bayreuth ice. If oh gosh, oh look away, sweet child. It gets Tranquilizer, and this is really the strength of Tranquilizer. The Corp drops 10 credits on this tier, and Ken is just like, I don't care. I don't care. In 3 turns, I'm going to de-res it. You're going to lose all that money. Oh, it's so painful. Alright, Harmony AR, going to shuffle some goods back into the stack. Back over to HB Sprint. Drawing some cards and potentially shuffling some agendas into R&D if wanted. You do have to shuffle 2 cards in, though, so maybe even a scenario where there are no cards you want to shuffle in, you still have to. Has subliminal messaging. Problem is, subliminal messaging, I don't know about that. I would almost keep that in HQ as an extra card for Ken to bump into, because I don't know how many turns Ken is going to spend not running, especially with an open archives. Although I guess Ken isn't really going to run an open archives, but they've got, I mean, Ken wants to run. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not like the worst idea. Maybe if Ken takes a turn or 2 to set up, doesn't make any runs, you can get a little bit of money out of subliminal messaging. Anyway, we have a lot of ice here and plenty of money, really, as well as a unknown card in server 1. This could be the scoring window HB needs. Although Ken getting a little scarier, installing more breakers, but doesn't really have any money to use them. Begalter dropped. It's really this D-res on tier that's going to hurt the most. I don't know if this tier is ever going to get rezzed again. I suppose, potentially, Architects of Tomorrow could do so. Wasn't it because of the run event? Wait, what are we looking at 13 creds for? Oh, yeah, because of the leave, the tread lightly. You're absolutely right. Yeah, so not only are they losing... Okay, good point brought up by Dunch. Tier was not res just for 10 credits. It was res for 13 because of the tread lightly effect. Ah, that's so painful. Anyway, the Corp actually decides, after subliminal messaging, which I guess they did get to use it there, decides to purge virus tokens, maybe wanting just to buy a little time, but I mean, it's not that they gain nothing from that. They gain a credit from subliminal and delay the D-res of tier, but I think that's what Ken wants. Ken wants... I mean, this is just more time for Ken to set up now. We do have a prepaid voice pad, which is going to make it easier to play events. We see that now in the form of overclock. Discounting overclock down to 0 means that Ken is actually generating a real credit due to his ID ability running this. Run on HQ reveals a barrier in the form of Eli. Ken clicks through it. Wants to see maybe if the Corp will res that boomerang piece of ice or not. Again, as discussed earlier, if the Corp does not res this boomeranged piece of ice, Ken can't install a new one. So yeah, indeed, Boomerang Ice not res, and access on HQ reveals a hedge fund, as well as bypassing a Biroid Ice. Eli over here in the remote server is res for free. And then Corroder is dropped. So we have the full breaker suite, but again, not a lot of money to use it. Hedge fund dropped in a double advance of the card in server 1. Perhaps again, this is still the scoring window that HB wants to at least get something. This would be huge if this was a Cyberdex virus sandbox. Like, hilariously huge. Because that would delay the D-Res on tier yet again. In addition to giving HB an out for purging in the future to gain 4 credits. They've got money. They've got plenty of money. You have to assume they're not resing this ice on HQ, not because they don't have the money for it, but simply because they are trying to lock down that Boomerang card. Ken actually just double draws and clicks for 2 credits. Again, I think he starved himself. He doesn't have any money here. That's going to allow subliminal messaging to be played again, as well as another purge. So even though Ken is poor here, this single tranquilizer has lost the corp 6 clicks. 6 clicks. Think about that. That's crazy. Ken getting a little more time to set up, accrue those funds, hedge funds for another 4 credits. Wait, you can prepaid hedge fund? Oh yeah, it's any event, not just run events. It's actually gaining 5 credits from hedge fund. Then goes ahead and bravados into HQ. Just for the money though, bounces off of Eli. I think that only generates you, what, 3 extra credits? Yeah, so at that point, Bravado just being used for the same way you would use an easy mark. Although I suppose because Ken's ID, it's actually more similar to a sure gamble. But here we see another Bravado used. Okay. So the first Bravado was used to get the money to get into this server. Now, a second Bravado used, we're going to pay to break the outermost Eli, and then the pass. The pass on this Eli reses the Ravana on HQ for free. The Corp wants to think whether or not they want to res this last piece of ice. Now, what is this in here? Is this an NGO front? Is this an actual agenda? Okay, we are going to res this last piece of ice. It is a toll booth. That's going to hurt quite a bit. Runner going to lose 3 credits right out the gate. And I don't think they're going to be able to pay to break this. Although, then again, Unity boosts really well. It would be 2 credits to boost and 1 credit to break. So yes, technically they can get in here. They're going to lose 3. And all they... Oh my goodness, Unity breaks toll booth for 3 credits. Am I doing the math on that right? I think so. And if there was just a single additional icebreaker on the table, it would break it for 2 credits. Still stuck paying that 3 credit on encounter cost, though. Oh, public terminal was rotated out. Yeah. I mean, prepaid voice pad is basically the same thing, right? Just more ubiquitous. Anyway, does manage to get in there. Steals a Project Vacheron. That kind of sucks. For the Corp, of course. The runner's very happy. Man, when you res a toll booth, and the best you can do is tax the runner 6 credits. Although, looks like the Corp is going to drop a punitive counterstrike. Has more than enough money to make sure the first one sticks, clicks for a credit, and has just enough money to make the second one stick. And that's going to be game. Wow. Did not expect the punitive Counter-Strike out of HB Architects of Tomorrow. Like, that is not something that would be on the forefront of my mind if I was Ken. Steals a 5-3, and sure enough, HB had plenty of money there. They didn't even need to click for that last credit. Wins through a flat line on a punitive. Punitive, I guess, now is a bit stronger now that Film Critic isn't around. I don't think people took Film Critic specifically to counter punitive, but it was certainly part of the whole package deal. So many people took Film Critic to counter things like Obokata, City Works, basically any effect that triggered off of stealing an agenda. Punitive was just packaged into that. It made punitive decks a little harder to use. Nowadays, though, I guess maybe we should start... I mean, we'll have to read the meta. Maybe we'll have to start being a little more afraid of punitive coming out of nowhere, especially if the corp is rich. How far along are we into this game? Not too far, actually. Quetzal versus Sync. No, Sync is still around. I feel like Sync doesn't get played terribly often. But it's a fun 90. I think it's because Misdirection just dunks on Sync. Alarm bells after seeing Tollbooth? Could be. I think at the point where the runner saw Tollbooth, they couldn't do anything. But you're right. Maybe Tollbooth is the indicator. Alright, Blatant Spin Doctor just rezzed and shown here. Why not? It functions exactly like Jackson Howard did. So you're under no pressure if your Spin Doctor is completely exposed. Quetzal getting set up with... Oh, Smartware Distributor. I wrote a review on NDB about this card. Comparing it as well as I could with our pre-existing cards. It's not a linchpin economy card by any means, but it's usable. You just have to make sure it pays out over the course of about 9 to 10 turns. So it's definitely a long-term investment. Anyway, Maw is put on the table, and a run on Spin Doctor, forcing it to either be popped to shuffle these cards into R&D, which it is going to be used. So probably the reason Quetzal did that is just to potentially force a suboptimal use of Spin Doctor, and was willing to spend a click to do that. Additionally, we saw the Maw was dropped. So in the event that perhaps Sync called Quetzal's bluff and didn't trash it, because I doubt Quetzal really wants to spend 2 credits trashing Spin Doctor right now. Even if Quetzal didn't trash it, Maw would fire, I believe. So they incentivized Sync to go ahead and use that. Now, tomorrow's headline was scored, which is kind of like breaking news, not really. It's NBN's fancy limit 1 per deck agenda. Gives a tag to the runner when it's scored or stolen. Quetzal just shakes the tag and keeps setting up. Still has a liberated account, drops a Rozeki. Still though, Sync getting forward tempo. Forward tempo at a rate that looks a little faster than Quetzal at this moment. Rashida's and drops 2 more cards in server 1. Quetzal has not really put any pressure on the corp so far. Now they haven't completely fallen behind yet. but you can't discount the fact that the Corp is up 2 points with potentially another 3-2 perhaps in server 1 or some other agenda, and hasn't had to spend any money on rezzing ice. Quetzal, kind of poor, has to fear those traces that surely are coming out of sync. Jinteki Biotech? Oh, yeah, I tried for the longest time to get Jinteki Biotech to work. It is kind of sad that, whoa! What happened here? Oh. I'm a little confused. Oh, okay. So it looks like the runner accidentally triggered Citadel Sanctuary and trashed their entire hand. And by the time they realized what had happened, the runner had already taken their turn and passed it over. And it was kind of too late, I guess, to fix it. I feel like you could have just added all these cards to your hand manually and it would have been fine. But I guess they decided not to bother. And so they conceded the game. That's too bad. These were shaping up to be kind of an interesting game. I think the Corp had the advantage, but it's not that the runner couldn't have pulled it out. Alright, let's see if we can get a full game this time. We have Az McCaffrey. I love Az. As well as the new Wayland ID. Whenever you advance a card, you get a credit back. A lot of times when you see this, you think of ice. But this also counts for agenda cards, I believe. Since there's no condition that it has to be ice that has been advanced. The only condition is that the card can't already have advancement tokens on it. But okay, it looks like a standoff was used. No, wait, where did red team go? We had red team on the table. Oh, I see. Az chose to trash red team. The Corp decided to not trash any of their cards. And so scored... No, they trashed the ice on R&D. And then Az declined to trash because they didn't have anything. Okay. Now I'm tracking. Prepaid voice bad. Dropped by Az. Another piece of ice put in front of R&D and advanced. Signifying this kind of ice advancement sort of signifies that we're looking at a mass commercialization, potentially Red Planet Courier deck. Although, interestingly, there's a double advance on the piece of ice in front of HQ, which could signify space ice, potentially. Or just ice that the Corp wants triple advanced for some reason. Generally speaking, manually advancing ice is a bad idea. We'll have to see if there's perhaps some master strategy behind that. Az continuing to set up, but doesn't have a whole lot to show for it just yet. Just 2 prepaid voice pads. Of course, that's helping them with any events they play, but we haven't seen any events yet. Back over to the Corp. Piece of ice protects archives for some reason, as well as the 3rd advancement placed on the card in front of R&D. I'm going to step out on a limb and potentially guess that our court player is a bit new to the game. These actions aren't making a ton of sense. Generally, this was a very good opportunity to start scoring agendas, just because Az was low on credits, doesn't really have any breakers on the table. Would have been a good time to drop an agenda behind a piece of ice and get things going. But we'll see. Hostile takeover scored, out of hand. Of course, getting even more money than normal since you gain a credit on the first advancement. That's pretty good. The lower agenda advancement requirement just sort of feeding into this ID ability, since advances on cards with all existing advancement tokens don't really help you. Az drops a Ms. Bones, but why? There's nothing to trash yet. It's potentially these are both of these are two new players. But that's great. I mean, hey, how else is the Netrunner community going to survive? Anyway, 2 pieces of ice in the new remote, as well as a new card behind it. We'll have to see if Az wants to contest this. It doesn't look like they want to. Instead, just gaining some money from Sure Gamble using those prepaid voice pads. Prepaid voice pad definitely going to generate a lot of credits over the course of this game, assuming that Az can maintain constant use of events. They already have 20 credits. We're going to rebirth? What? We're going to rebirth into Ian Sterling. Okay, so we're going to generate more money because we're behind on points. Technically 1 point behind. Ian Sterling going to generate the runner 2 credits as long as they are, as long as they have fewer points. Ian Sterling got a little worse. Actually, because Film Critic rotated it out. One of the common strategies was to install multiple copies of Ian Sterling and then hold the agendas on Film Critic so that you can still generate those 2 credits. Generating 2 credits a turn is not small, in addition to the 1 link that Ian has. Corp puts a new piece of ice in front of HQ, as well as advances a naked card. In an unprotected remote, Mayfly dropped by Ian, and then runs the new remote. It is an NGO front, so a waste of a click. Corp gaining that money. And now we're going to run this remote server with just a Mayfly. That's perfectly acceptable. What? Wait, what? What? We bounced. We bounced off Magnet for some reason. So the card behind Magnet, the Magnet server was triple advance. It was a global food initiative. If I had to read the actions of the players, and assuming, again, making the assumption these players are new, a common mistake of newer players is to be afraid of running into something bad. So maybe they didn't want to use the Mayfly, because once Mayfly is used, it trashes itself, and they didn't want to lose that card. But really, the runner definitely should have used Mayfly to get in here. Decides to make a diversion of funds run into HQ, sees an Afshar. Can only break one of those. Breaks it with Amina. So the Corp actually doesn't lose a credit from Amina because both subroutines weren't broken. And indeed, this is Asteroid Belt, Space Ice. So it does make a little more sense as to why the Corp was manually advancing these. Asteroid Belt rezzed, broken by Mayfly. We get into HQ and drain 5 credits from the Corp, 5 credits going back over to the runner. Followed up by an emergency shutdown, derezzing the Magnet. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. Magnet or Afshar, I wouldn't personally want to derez the Magnet because the Magnet can trigger its on-res ability again. But if the runner doesn't run anything that attaches to Corp Ice, like they aren't using Tranquilizer for some reason, then I guess it's not really the end of the world. Ian Sterling still making those 2 credits per turn. The Corp previously installing a new card in the remote, advancing it once. Ian deciding to go ahead and legwork into the remote, but we already know this is a. Well, no, oh, okay. Sorry, I misspoke. We already know the magnet is a code gate, which Amina can break. Ooh, that's gonna hurt. All right, runs into a Tithonium with no real way to interact with that. Standoff pitched to res Tithonium. Tithonium going to trash 2 programs, but only 1 available in the form of Amina. Ooh, that really hurts. 7 install program is never a card that you want the Corp to trash. And then trash 1 resource and end the run. Looks like we got rid of Hernando Cortez to make sure that in the future, ice is not expensive to res. Security testing dropped. I mean, maybe not the best time, or sorry, I try to say worst and best at the same time. Maybe not the worst time to drop a security testing. You can potentially get into archives, assuming the Corp didn't have any money. Unfortunately, that card in server 3 was an NGO front, so the Corp is back to having money, making a potential security testing into archives a little more dangerous. A new card is added into server 3, advanced once. Deuce's Wild is going to expose a card. Still running on archives there, and we see the problem discussed earlier about the Corp actually having the money to res this. Veritas is res. The runner has no breakers, no tricks. They're just going to faceplant into Veritas. That's going to discount the cost to res Veritas by 2. The runner's going to lose 2 credits, and then we're going to do a tag trace. Probably just not going to be paid into at all, I would imagine. No. So I suppose the runner does gain the 2 credits they lost from Veritas back, but not the credits they paid into the trace. Falsified credentials, guesses an agenda in server 3. It is an agenda, so we get some money on the falsified credentials use. The false lead is scored. It's a very powerful agenda to have in the Corp score area if the Corp is going for a kill strat. Now the runner is filthy rich, but has no installed programs. So a lot of this money is going to be tied up into either reinstalling Amina or installing newer. When do we lose the Big Altar? Nope. There's a concession. Looks like the runner decides they need to drop out of this one. That's okay. This looked like 2 new players having fun, figuring out how to play the game. You could definitely see some of the strategy behind the Corpse deck in general. A lot of low advancement cards, or, well, I say a lot. It was mostly just standoff and hostile takeover. But yeah, standoff makes you a credit more. Hostile takeover makes you a credit more. Not too bad. The turns that you use them with this ID. And then having ice that you pitch a worthless agenda for to res certainly makes sense. I think the runner just needed to... I don't think the runner's deck is bad by any means. I don't think there's anything wrong with these cards necessarily. The Hernando Cortez is a little weird, but like, fine. If you want to include a Hernando Cortez, go for it. I think mostly just the order in which they did things needed to be thought out a little better. Definitely use the Mayfly to come in here on that run. That would have prevented the global food from being stolen or scored. And then when you don't have a Mayfly, don't face check. Well, I can't say don't face check ice, but maybe I can if there's an Amina. Like, right? Like, you don't have your sentry killer, you don't have your killer installed. You have this 7 cost program that you want to protect. I think I am justified in saying don't run without your killer. You don't need the barrier breaker necessarily. The problem is, though, I guess Tithonium's a barrier that destroys it's kind of weird like that. So the advice I'm giving wouldn't even help them. How do you predict that as the runner? Is that just a risk of running a Mina? Maybe I don't know. If you install a Mina, do you have to have your other 2 breakers to be safe? Is that just like a rule of thumb? Definitely you could just install another Mayfly if you had one and you'd be safe. It's rough. Tithonium is definitely like it's a weird barrier breaker. Yeah, it is kind of a bad idea to face check against Wayland without a barrier breaker. I mean, but aside from Tithonium, is there another barrier that trashes programs? I think that's what makes Tithonium so weird. Because most of the time when you think of program trashing, it's like you generally think of things like Archer or Rototurret, or I think even Ichi doesn't it? Although I don't know if that's legal anymore. Typically don't think of Tithonium, but I don't know, maybe you should. Like you said, it's in Wayland. You gotta consider it. It's easy for me to say that, though. Anyway, I'm glad to see new players playing the game. If new people aren't playing the game, then the community dies. And if the community dies, then we are all very sad. Yeah, it'd be pretty annoying to run into a, border control, and the corp gets the money from it. That's a barrier, too. It's not the end of the world, but it's kind of a nuisance. I'm trying to think of some other barriers that are annoying to run into. I mean, most of them just end the run in one way or another. Alright, new Anarch ID. Renee Loop. I don't even know how to say that last name. Arkmount? First time you trash a card you are accessing, gain 1 credit and draw 1 card, but it has to be a card you're accessing. Can't be trashed through other means. Imp, an obvious include in this deck. We're looking at also the new NBN deck, gaining credits or cards whenever the runner takes a tag. Imp dropped, run on R&D, trashes a hard-hitting news. Nice target. Runner ends their turn by drawing a card. Hansei review dropped, which also means a card is trashed from HQ. But apparently, there was another hard-hitting news in HQ. It's going to be 4 tags going over to the side of the runner. Runner does have enough money to shake this, though. If they want, they can just drop the tags. They lose all their money. No. Gonna play it bold. Run into R&D. See what we see. Trash is a Hydra. That's big. Okay, this makes sense. A certain level of sense. R&D was still open. Goes into R&D. Free run, why not? Trashes a card with Imp. Triggers the ID ability. Renee's ability. And then shakes 3 of the tags, putting them outside the danger zone of a card like Boom. Corp draws 2 and takes a credit. We see Paperclip and Black Orchestra in the bin. A lot of clicking for credits here. It kind of makes sense. Both sides got poor due to this hard-hitting news exchange. Runner draws, clicks for 2 more credits, and drops a Poemu. Poemu going to generate more or less 1 credit a turn that can always be used on something. A lot of cards going over to the side of the Corp due to Rashida. Double install on R&D. Kind of signifies that perhaps there aren't... No? Okay, we're going to undo that. I was going to say... and install in Archives. Makes a little more sense. I was going to say, double install on R&D signifies that there aren't agendas in HQ worth protecting. That for some reason R&D would be the one to protect, but no. I wonder why there's a piece of ice in front of Archives. What does that accomplish? I suppose it stops free runs, but why would Renee want free runs into Archives? Maybe the Corp is anticipating a virus card generation, a virus token card that generates virus tokens on runs. But we haven't seen anything to indicate that. Is Amakua still legal? I think that's a big question. If Amakua is legal, Crimson Dust, I think that's Flashpoint, isn't it? No, that's Red Sands. Yeah, so Amakua should still be legal, right? Where's the tab here? So I guess potentially it stops things like that, as well as Leech. We'll have to see, though. Anyway, Spin Doctor put into server 1, flipped for 2 cards, 2 new pieces of ice. The Corp probably does not have enough money to res all this ice, assuming that they're all not like turnpikes or something. And they all cost 2 credits to res. There's 6 pieces of unresed ice, but there's only 11 credits on the side of the Corp. Overclock run in R&D? I don't know how I feel about this. You can kind of look at this overclock run as a free... sorry, not a free. As a 1 credit inside job. Because you're disincentivizing the Corp to res this so that the runner doesn't get to spend the overclock credits. So it's kind of like a 1 credit inside job, or if the Corp does res this ice, you just use the overclock credits to install your breakers and use them. Knobcurry, though, dropped. That's going to generate virus tokens on Imp. In addition to that, Prognostic Q Loop was used to install an Imp, paying an extra credit to install it, but also saves the click on the draw and the install. Trash's hedge fund sure gambles themselves, rather. Dirty Laundry's back into R&D. Now we'll have to see if the Corp wants to res this ice on R&D now. Does not. Gets into R&D and sees yet another card. Imp can only be used once per turn, but with 2 copies of Imp on the table, each can be used once per turn, I believe. So that's pretty rough. Although Renee's ability is only going to fire the first time. Send a message is scored. That's going to let the Corp res one of these pieces of ice for free. It makes a little more sense now why they installed all of this ice when they had so little credits. Because they were probably thinking in the back of their head, well, if send a message is stolen, I can res one of these expensive pieces of ice for free. In this case, it's the 10 to res Hydra. Pretty strong. Pretty strong sentry coming out of NBN. Even worse if the runner is tagged. When they run into it for the first subroutine. Just due to that unexpected 3 net damage. You typically don't expect 3 net damage out of NBN. But Hydra provides that. Pretty dead on the outside. Yeah, you probably want like a fun house in front of it. Or maybe even a ping. Anyway, back over to the Corp. They install a new card in server 1 double advance. The runner understandably just wants nothing to do with that. Just wants to get right back in R&D, wants to use these imps. The Corp does now res the R&D ice. I wonder if they should have done this the last time Renee ran. I don't know why they didn't, especially because it was only 2 credits. They must have had their reasons. Maybe they weren't in hedge fund range. Did they hedge fund last turn? No? I don't know why they didn't res it. Anyway, we're going into R&D. Prognostic Q loop. Doing its thing, but we're not firing its ability. Getting into R&D and seeing a Bologna paying to steal that. Corp's a little low on money, decides to click up for 3 credits. Probably wise, just in case there's another hard-hitting news coming out of there. Spin Doctor was able to shuffle 2 cards into R&D, but neither of them were hard-hitting news. What does Spin Doctor take? Not really sure. 2 unseen cards, so perhaps they were agendas. And it looks like there was the 3rd hard-hitting news. No, an archive memories that pulls hard-hitting news out of the bin. It's going to stick Renee with 4 tags. So now Renee has to decide, do they want to shake these tags? Or do they want to, I don't know, go in for the last point? The safe bet, I think, is definitely to shake the tags. You take a credit, shake 3 of the tags, you're safe. At least from Boom. Acme. Oh man, yeah. Acme's a fun one. The outermost res of Hydra with Acme. You just have to assume every outermost piece of ice is gonna kill you when you play against Acme. Okay, perhaps decides to go tag me. Runs into HQ. Kind of bold. Makes me think that the Corp is, or sorry, the runner is either believing in their luck to the point where they think the Corp isn't going to boom them. Alternatively, it could have also been the idea that maybe if the Corp has to res this ice, then they won't have enough money to boom. But boom only costs like, what, 4 credits, I think? Yeah, 4 credits. So the Corp is definitely within the realm of double-clicking for credits, except Slot Machine just earned them 3 credits back, so no. Yeah, the runner put themselves on a timer now. They have to find this last They either have to find the boom that's in HQ, or they have to score this last agenda point. Accessed what looked like another slot machine from HQ. Imp is going to trash that. So we are getting clean, fresh accesses here running into HQ. Running right back into HQ because we can trash this ping, or sorry, break the ping for a single credit, which was obtained because of Renee's ID ability on the imp trash of slot machine. Back into, oh no, seize the boom. It is actually poor. How many times am I going to say actually? Renee is poor. Doesn't have the credit to trash boom, but it doesn't matter. They just spend the imp token to do it. And that's rough, because suddenly the win condition was right there in the corp's hand. And I feel like they're just like, are you kidding me? So they just triple advance the send a message and then res the card over archives for free. That's definitely not what they wanted to do. They wanted to boom the runner. But it was not meant to be. Botulus. When you install this program, when your turn begins, place one virus, break subroutine on piece of ice. Interesting. So it's kind of like Ika. Kind of like an AI ice that isn't AI. It's a virus ice. Icebreaker, rather. Botulus is just used to break the end the run on IP block. Pretty good use of Botulus. Successful run adds another virus token to a virus card. In this case, it is Botulus again. Trashes Spin Doctor using an imp token out of R&D. Runs right back in. Definitely going to break the second IP block subroutine with Botulus again. We'll have to see what we see here in R&D. Oh my goodness, this is the game-winning agenda. In true Anarch style, in a streak of color and loud blaring music, completely tagged. Everyone knows where he is. It doesn't even matter. Blows up the facility that was going to launch the missile to blow up his house. Doesn't even need money. Just breaks everything with Botulus and trashes everything with Imp. You gotta love it. Or at least I do. I love the chaos. So yeah, I mean, overall, things were pretty touch and go there for the runner. I can't remember the exact number of cards in HQ. It was something like 4 or 5. And the runner made 2 runs into HQ there. Looking either for the last agenda point or boom. Found boom. But still, the odds were, I don't know. Maybe the odds weren't the worst ever. It would take quite a while to try to calculate the exact percentage of whether or not, what were the odds of there being an agenda in HQ, boom in HQ, and the odds of him actually hitting it. But you know what? It paid off this time. And due to that, there was a game-winning run on R&D. Corp definitely was not close to scoring out. I think the only way they were going to win is if they drew and archived memories and pulled their boom back out. They probably had at least another spin doctor or two and could have shuffled the boom back into R&D. Because I don't think these tags are going away anytime soon. You gotta feel some sympathy for the Corp though. Like, it's one of those times where if you're playing the game in person and you look into the eyes of the other player as you the Corp hold up the cards and ask the runner to select one at random, and they select your boom, and you're just like, ugh. Anyway, Omar Kyung, previously somebody else. We don't actually know. Omar Kyung rebirthed against Sports Metal. Run R&D reveals a drafter which is going to fire, adds a Managarm Skunkworks, that's the new HB upgrade, to HQ. Taking a quick look at the board state. Where's this 1 credit from the run coming from? Wait, we've got a bad publicity. Wait, how does Sports Metal have bad pub? Huh? Hold on here. What? Where did this bad pub come from? Was something res? We'll have to figure that one out. Anyway, Mining Corp isn't still a thing, is it? Well, even if it was, it would be removed from the game. None of this ice gives you bad pub. Anyway. Alright, so a run into R&D. I don't understand why this run into R&D stopped. It says the Corp ended the run, but how? Oh, with Managarm Skunkworks, of course. Okay, so Drafter pulled Managarm into R&D. Omar couldn't afford to pay it. Runs archives, runs into an Onsel. Onsel trashes. Why did Onsel not trash guard? Trash one installed runner card. Oh, because okay, so 1 click was spent to prevent the trash installed runner card from happening. Otherwise, a card was installed from HQ or archives. Okay. I think we're tracking now. 0 installed Penny Shaver coming out of Anarch, kind of interesting. Gaining a credit every time you make a successful run. We have a lot of things going on in this remote server on the side of the Corp Tranquility Grid. First time each turn you install a card in the server, gain 2 credits or draw 1 card. Just kind of a little bit of forward tempo. A new card in server 1 with an advancement token on it, and yet another unknown card. Final click is spent putting another piece of ice in front of R&D. Potentially to protect the Skunkworks. Sports Metal doesn't have a ton of money, but has plenty of ice res on the table. Especially the Onsel protecting archives is pretty nice. Ooh, though. Okay, Omar has installed a Hippo. Hippo can still trash ice, even if it was broken using clicks. So Omar can run archives here break all of Ansel's subroutines by clicking through it and get rid of it with Hippo. Now, with a card in server 1 was a Cyberdeck sandbox, so it is a credit neutral score, in addition to the fact that if Omar runs any kind of virus cards, it's going to make that difficult to use in the future. Omar, indeed, using an Omar run into archives breaks Ansel with clicks, trashes Hippo to get rid of it. Not really what HB wants to see, but it's part of the game. You do what you can. It is going to be treated as a successful run into R&D, which amazingly, I don't think triggers Skunkworks. Due to the way the approach happens. Yeah, I don't see Skunkworks actually firing here. So bypasses Skunkworks, goes in and pays the 3 to trash it, accesses a card that apparently wasn't enough to do anything. Meanwhile, Sports Metal rebuilds the dike, puts a new card in server 1, and drops a new piece of ice in front of archives. I'll be interested to see how Omar wants to use this 0. 0 can just be used at face value to kind of gain forward tempo, getting money, drawing cards, of course, always useful. But oh no, Mining Accident is there. So Mining Accident is still a thing. I thought it got removed from the game. Corp must pay 5 credits or take 1 bad publicity. Remove mining. Yeah. So if the Corp has bad pub, shouldn't this Mining Accident be removed from the game? Oh well. Oh well. But yeah, there's the obvious synergy with 0 in terms of I've had worse. But I wonder if there are any new interactions. So far, it doesn't seem like anything other than the I've had worse 0 interaction is being used. Omar getting lucky and I've had worse is pinged, drawing them a ton of cards, getting a little bit of money in the process. Drops 2 daily casts, has 1 last click to perhaps choose, I would assume, further setup. He's staring at a Corp with 24 credits, probably doesn't really want to run last click, especially not with a lot to lose and no real way to mitigate the loss. Decides to draw that last click, drops 2 more paper clips in the bin, as well as another Black Orchestra. So the 3 breakers are in the bin, but forward momentum is definitely on the side of the Corp as they triple advance yet another agenda in server 1. Luminal Transubstantiation. Okay, so I made a really big deal about how strong this card was last time I saw it. I did not realize it was limit 1 per deck, which definitely is much more understandable. It's kind of the fancy thing that everybody's getting 1 limit 1 per deck card, so this just happens to be HBs. So you've got 3 more clicks. They drop 2 new cards into server 1 and advance 1 of them. This could be another 4-2 in the form of Cyberdeck Sandbox. Could just be another 3-2, perhaps in the form of Vitruvius. Understandably, Omar's going right in there. I do think maybe if Omar had any money cards, maybe they should have tried to find them and or use them before doing this, because installing the bin breakers is not going to be cheap. Hagen rezzed, and that makes a lot of sense, simply because it's going to be enough on its own to keep the runner out, assuming they don't install the paperclip. Plus, the strength is going to be higher if the runner hasn't installed anything. Perhaps the Corp is very confident that the runner can't get in here. There's a sports metal card where the runner has to pay money to access, but that might be a region. Since Tranquility Home Grid is a region card, well, plus I think the sports metal upgrade that makes the runner pay money relies on agendas in the runner's score area, so that's probably not what we're going to see. No, it's just another Metagarm Skunkworks. Omar does pay the 2 clicks to access that. Pays 3 credits to trash. Oh, and this is why the Corp was not in any rush to res both of these pieces of ice. It is simply a Nico campaign. Omar expended all that time, money, and energy into basically just getting in here and trashing a skunkworks. Not ideal. I guess they also got the Biovault, so it's not completely useless. Biovault, pretty frustrating. But it's kind of looking like this is becoming a super server. And I don't know how quick Omar's going to be able to get back in here. An overwrite on the Nico campaign suggests that the newly installed card is an agenda. It could technically also be an asset. But I think the Corp is reading that this is their window to score out. Omar down to 6 credits. Probably can't get back into this server. Least of all with 2 new pieces of ice here. He would have to install, assuming that they aren't both barriers, have to install either Black Orchestra, MK Ultra, or both. Penny Shavers to get some of that money back. And he's going to try his best. But a border control is going to make this difficult. He can get through the border control this time, has a click left over to spare, but I don't think he can get through the server twice. Hagen. Going to make this expensive. 4 credits to break with Paperclip. Magnet Res. No way Omar can get through that. Meaning that the Corp doesn't even have to use border control. I mean, I suppose Black Orchestra could have been installed, but at that point Hagen would have been too expensive, I think, to get through with Paperclip. So instead of fighting the Magnet, Omar changes tactics and goes into an Omar run into Archives, sees an Onsel, Sentry, goes ahead and installs MK Ultra, has just enough to break 2 of the subroutines. But allows the Corp to install 1 card from HQ or Archives, I think is what happened there. No. The subroutine that fired was the runner cannot steal or trash cards they access during this run. So even though Omar got in, nothing really came from it other than a credit placed on Penny Shaver. The Corp is down to 4 credits. That is something. What? Interesting. So that card in server 1 probably wasn't an agenda. Unless it was, and it was simply overwritten just to get the 2 credits back from Tranquility Grid. Although that wouldn't make a lot of sense. No, I think we have to assume that card wasn't an agenda. A new card overwrites the card that was previously in server 1. Advanced twice. More than likely, we have to think this is an agenda, right? It very well could be a Biovault, though. No, it couldn't, because this card wouldn't be trashed then, right? A Biovault's an upgrade. Yeah. Now, I suppose it could also be an NGO front or something silly like that, but we only see 2 agendas on the table. We're halfway through the deck. I think it has to be an agenda. I think Omar knows that, and there's not a lot Omar can do without money. That's really what's holding Omar back, and he's been having these 2 daily casts tick down this entire time. 3 neural spikes. No one suspects the triple neural spikes. Yeah, I haven't seen neural spike actually used yet. It's kind of, I don't know, what would you consider it? It's sort of like... Oh gosh, now I've completely forgotten the name. We saw it earlier. Punitive Counter-Strike. That's not what it's called. What's it called? Punitive No, it is punitive Counter-Strike. It's kind of like Jinteki's punitive Counter-Strike in a way. I'm sure Neural Spike will be used to hilarious effect by someone in the future. Neuro Spike. I'm saying it wrong. Yeah, do X net damage where X is equal to the sum of the printed agenda. But they have to be ones you scored. I see, that's the difference. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like a run into R&D. Drafter is broken. MK Ultra does have a somewhat favorable matchup with Drafter. Drafter and Architect kind of like the same sort of ice, except that Drafter can actually be trashed. But no, just a Rashida found in R&D running back into HQ, or rather, I shouldn't say back into HQ, just running into HQ, sees a Gatekeeper. Strength is going to be far too high to even consider pulling out Black Orchestra and using it. Corp gets to draw 3 cards. Reveal up to 3 agendas. Did we reveal any agendas? One agenda was revealed. Cyberdex. The card in server 1 was indeed an NGO front. A new card is dropped in server 1, and this is really looking like the corpse game. Oh, where did Omar get all this money from? 4 from Daily Cast. Did they penny shaver? Oh, yeah, they penny shavered last turn. Okay, so perhaps in what is a last hurrah. Well, not the last hurrah. If they get in and steal this, the Corp really isn't on game point unless they have a 5-3. This is probably a 5-3, though. What, like a Vacheron or... Although, Sports Metal does tend to run low value agendas, but that doesn't seem to be the case for this Sports Metal deck. We already see a 3-2 and a 4-2. Yeah, so funnily enough, that card that I was convinced had to be an agenda was just an NGO front. Omar pays through all the ice. Border control ends the run. And he's going to go back in. Hagen's strength is far lower now that 3 breakers are on the table. And actually gets his first agenda. Global food. Kind of interesting that this is a Sports Metal deck. I mean, Sports Metal is pretty flexible as far as strategies you can play out of it. But you typically don't see a lot of high-value cards out of a Sports Metal. Or high-value agendas, rather. I can kind of see why you would want Global Food, though. It's only worth 2 points if the runner steals it. I don't think Sports Metal is terribly deterred, though. They install a new card in server 1 and followed up with a piece of ice to replace the border control that was trashed. And Omar just... Admittedly, to Omar's credit, he's stuck in this. Has managed to steal an agenda. 2-4. Prevented the game-winning score from the Corp, but I think it's rough. It's mostly the money still that's holding Omar back. And now that StimHack has rotated, we can't expect 9 credits out of nowhere from the runner. Pretty sure Stim Hack is gone. Yeah. And this quite possibly could be representative of the change that a lack of Stim Hack in the game creates. I've had worse used to draw cards. Perhaps too many valuable cards in hand to risk being pinged by 0. Leech is dropped. And a Dirty Laundry run into R&D seems a touch risky, just because we don't know what this outermost piece of ice is. But I think he has to take risks now. And it does pay off. The run is successful. We get a token on Leech. The Dirty Laundry money comes in, but the card in server 1 is a Vitruvius, putting the Corp on game point. And Sports Metal gaining more forward tempo from their ID ability. Or rather, more like offsetting the cost of scoring the Vitruvius by 2 credits. Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it. That new Wayland ID, I was making a big deal because it earns you an extra credit whenever you advance a piece of ice, or sorry, advance an agenda. You know, Sports Metal, if you only use it to gain money, does the exact same thing. Except it also triggers when the runner steals it. Yeah, it really could end the game. Assuming that Sports Metal has fast advance. But then again, we haven't seen any. Anyway, a run into Archives. Paperclip going to break Onsel, and then Hippo going to remove it from the game. Mining accident thrown down. The Corp goes ahead and takes the bad publicity. I think that makes sense because the game probably isn't going to go on long enough for that last point of bad publicity to actually matter. Because it's not free for the runner to do that. They have to spend a click and 2 credits to play Mining Accident. So it's not until 3 runs when that 3 runs of using the bad publicity until it actually pays off. A run on R&D sees a Fairchild 3.0. Bit of an expensive card to get in through. But Leech is going to make that much more palatable. 6 credits from Black Orchestra and 1 token from Leech. 3 credits to break Magnet. Hagen's strength is very low, so it's only 2 credits to break with Paperclip. However, the card in server 1 is simply a Spin Doctor. It's going to get Sports Metal 2 more cards and shuffle 2 cards from Archives into R&D. Biovolt and an unseen card. Omar gets in and accesses the Tranquility Grid, but just doesn't trash it. Why would they? They didn't even have the money to do so. That Tranquility Grid is innocent enough when you look at it, but boy, has it gained Sports Metal a ton of value over the course of this game. Every single time a card has been installed on the first time each turn, a card has been installed over the course of this game. That's 2 credits or 1 card draw. And this Tranquility Grid has been here since nearly the beginning of the game, if not the beginning. It's a ton of value. Anyway, a new card goes into server 1, as well as another piece of ice protecting Archives. I don't know what all these face down cards are. I don't know if the Corp has enough money to res this, but they are down to just 8 credits. Could be stretching themselves a little bit thin, could be posturing. just to make things scary for Omar, or perhaps they really do have the money to res all this ice. Omar dirty laundries into R&D, and a gatekeeper is probably going to keep them out for good. That gatekeeper is going to fire, and that's going to be a pretty heavy blow against Omar. They're going to lose the 2 credits on dirty laundry, as well as handing over that draw to Sports Metal, as well as ending the run. No cards are shuffled back into R&D. So either Sports Metal doesn't care or drew the card they want. I think they just probably don't care. They probably don't need it right now. An Omar run into Archives accesses an NGO front. That's trash for a credit. Interesting. But the card in Server 1 is just a Nico campaign. It's not going to be the game-winning agenda. Nico campaign is overwritten. But this could be anything, right? Oh, it is an agenda, though. Biotic Labor gives them the fast advance they need to win the game. And installing the agenda into the Tranquility Grid server was actually relevant. That wasn't just for show. That wasn't just a hasty click. They got those extra 2 credits, one of which they needed to complete the fast advance. Yeah, it is the standard, just kind of standard, you know, you're in HB, why not Biotic Labor? Certainly not completely unexpected, but was the ending we got. Deserved, I think. This corp was really giving the runner a lot of trouble. A lot of ice on the table, a lot of it rezzed. We have to think 2 of the ice, pieces of ice on Archives, were actually trashed. Sports Metal can get away with that a little bit, just because they gained so much money from the ID ability. Also, the Tranquility Grid was just powering up all of this. If somehow Omar had been able to trash that early, it could have made the difference. But it's understandable, right? Omar was just kind of on the back foot the entire game, struggling to make enough money to get into these locations. Looks like their economy relies on Mining Accident, Liberated Account, Sure Gamble, of course, and then Penny Shaver to sort of generate that revenue. Amakua probably would have been installed and used, except the Cyberdex Virus Sandbox makes that kind of a no-go. So I understand why they didn't install that. This deck isn't lightning quick, but it's solid enough. It's got everything it needs, right? Economy, breakers, on-run synergy between Amakua and Leech. Mining Accident is a little slow, but if you can get them down early, they're very, very strong. And then Hippo just overall is a nice way to get rid of ice. Omar tried their best, but just wasn't able to get through. Tranquility Grid, man. It seems so innocent. I know I just keep saying that, but I don't know another way to put it. It's just like, oh, it's just 2 credits. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. And then you just keep getting 2 credits over and over again. Valencia is still legal? Was she saved? That's awesome. Oh no, wait, she's from Order and Chaos. Never mind. Okay, so Valencia. Oh, you know what? That's how in the last game. We're watching the same deck, aren't we? That's how Omar had the bad pub. Because it came from Valencia. Now that makes way more sense. Okay, so let's see this Omar deck again. Only let's see how, like, probably a much better edge case, not edge case just in general as to why the Omar deck was probably better than we got to see in the last game. Okay, so an agenda is scored. Pharos Res here has a lot of strength. 10 strength. It's going to be a little tough to get through. Scores tied 2-2, but the Cyberdeck sandbox in the score area of the Corp going to make Leech and Amakua significantly worse. But only if... Well, I shouldn't say only. But I will say that the Corp will definitely want to ice up Archives eventually. Of course, we know the Rebirth is going to come out of Valencia at some point into Omar. Whoredom, shown on HQ, broken by Black Orchestra. I'm assuming that... No, because Whoredom is the one with 2. Oh, hey, Dunch, thanks. You too. Catch you later, man. But yeah, unlike Mausolus, Whoredom only has the 2 subroutines, so you can just boost once to break Black Orchestra with it. Mass commercialization. Thrown down, generating enough credits to put the Corp in a much safer place. Probably can afford to res the ice on R&D and not dip too low. Although if it's another Pharos, 7 credits are pretty steep. The runner, not exactly rich, but still going to try this anyway. Has probably enough tokens to interact with what they run into, although an Aket gains 3 strength when triple advance. And only one of the subroutines can be broken. Valencia just lets both fire. Solves a daily cast and clicks for a credit. Ooh, you know, Whoredom, it's easy to forget, but Whoredom is an anti-AI ice. Valencia will not be able to use Amakua to break it once it gets its 3rd counter. New card installed in server 1 advanced once. Polop. We don't always get to see this one. Will allow Valencia to trash any res card and trash that card. Pay the trash cost. Oh, but it has to have a trash cost. Okay, I was going to say. Otherwise, you could just trash ice him with it. Hits HQ, trashes the Whoredom with Hippo before it can be any trouble. That's unfortunate because Waylon loses those advancement tokens. A corporate sales team is stolen from HQ, but goes back to Waylon, who just triple advances the off-world office, gaining money back from it as well. But Valencia is going to have a heyday now. Runs into HQ twice after installing Penny Shaver, getting money on Penny Shaver, tokens on Leech and Amakua, turning wheel counters. This is a much better example of how powerful this Valencia deck can be. We haven't even seen the rebirth. It could still be in Valencia's deck, or it could be even in Valencia's hand, and she's holding off on using it, sort of to create that surprise factor. She runs into R&D, does drop Aket's strength, low enough for Amakua to break. Can't break the add advancement token to one card and gain a credit, but that's just the way Aket works. Advancement token was added to, I believe, the outermost piece of ice on the remote. Gets into R&D. Sees several cards with turning wheel. One of them is the second corporate sales team. 2 credits to trash a false flag. Oh, that's too bad. False flag is such a fun card. It's one of those perfect combinations of mechanics and theming, because it looks like a government takeover when you advance it over and over and over again. Last click runs into HQ, hits a slot machine. We see an event, a program, and a program, so 2 subs are going to fire here. Doesn't matter though, Amakua just breaks them all. Sees a Trick of Light in HQ. Okay, so fast advance coming from Trick of Light, that makes sense. Hedge Fund and another piece of ice on R&D kind of signifies that there aren't agendas in HQ right now. Would be, I think, how you would read this. Another advancement on the piece of ice on R&D, probably for the mass commercialization purposes. Valencia goes back into HQ though, because it is very cheap to get in, just 2 credits. And it filters her deck in a way, shows her the top 3 cards, although this was really just done for the mining accident trigger. The corp goes and pays into the mining accident. Depending on what they want to do moving forward, that could be the right call. It does seem that way because they spend the next turn simply purging viruses, gaining 4 credits from Cyberdecks. So even though they paid 5 into the mining accident, they get 4 of it back. Valencia, though, sees an open archives, is just going to run right in there. Space Camp, nifty little archives trap. Gets to add more advancement tokens on ice. Valencia, not wanting to hand free advancement tokens over to Wayland, decides instead to dirty laundry HQ. Drops its strength by 1, and I don't know if the strength drop was needed, was it? Yeah. I think they were used to having Amakua up so high that they were intending to, well, actually, I don't know. Why would they drop the strength? You should just be able to pay 3 with Black Orchestra to break 2 of the credits, or, not credit subroutines. What did we reveal, though? A resource, a program, and an event? So only one of these subroutines is firing. They're going to redo the run. Dirty laundry back into R&D, or sorry, HQ. Leech token not used. The runner loses 3 credits, gets an HQ, sees a hedge fund, but the real value is getting the dirty laundry money, turning wheel counter, penny shaver, Amakua, and leech. You really see the run synergy here. Loses Poemu due to a zero trigger. I haven't really been tracking that. Zero has probably been being used several times this game. Another purge on the part of the Corp. Okay, you can't keep doing this forever. Turn 12, and that last purge was turn 13, so that's 2 purges in a row. I think the Corp is trying to incentivize runs into archives to generate more advancement tokens with Space Camp. While stalling for the cards they need? I'm not entirely sure. What appears to be the last dirty laundry is played into HQ. We see event, program. Both subroutines are fired. 3 credits lost on the side of the runner, 3 credits gained on the side of the Corp. Access is mass commercialization. Runner decides to take their penny shaver money and goes into R&D. Perhaps this will be a turning wheel run to access 3 cards for the potential win. But this ice is probably going to have to be broken. No, most definitely going to be broken by real breakers. Although Mazvingo is just a barrier. So 3 credits are enough to break Mazvingo. Arquette, only one of these can be broken, but it doesn't really matter. The end of run will be broken. 4 credits. Advancement token probably added on the Mazvingo. Yeah. Corp gains a credit, but it doesn't really matter. Turning wheel tokens dropped, and we're going to see 3 cards. Good chance this is the game-winning run, but we'll have to wait and see. Not all runs are lucky. NGO front trashed. Card access as the second access, and the third card is Biovault, also trashed. Penny Shaver used to gain 2 credits, passed back over to the Corp. It's a bit of a nail biter, but because Wayland avoided that, or rather, due to luck, which luck is part of the game. So due to luck, knows their next couple cards are not going to be agendas, knows they have a little bit of time to kind of set up, play it a little slow. They put a piece of ice in front of R&D to dissuade future runs, as well as advancing it and using mass commercialization to really get a lot of money back. Although, the Corp doesn't know what you and I know, which is this Valencia deck runs Rebirth. And they think they're safe from archive runs because Valencia won't run archives due to Space Camp. But once Omar hits the table, R&D and HQ are wide open, no matter how much ice is in front of R&D. This is an easy thing to overlook, but you have to assume every time you see a Valencia that they're going to Rebirth. Every single Valencia deck runs Rebirth. And Omar is a really popular pick. So this third piece of ice on the scoring remote, I understand the Corp wants to score. Maybe they're just hoping that Rebirth isn't around. I mean, I'll say one thing. It could just be that they're accepting the loss. They're saying, you know what? Omar definitely is a thing. I have to focus on how I can win. And if they protect archives, they might not have enough protection in their scoring remote to actually score out. So it wouldn't really matter that archives is being protected. They still couldn't win. So maybe they're planning on top decking the agenda and scoring out in this scoring remote, because the runner is down to 2 credits. In fact, there was another run. What did we run here? Was it HQ? Yeah. A run on HQ reveals a trick of light, and then 2 mining accidents are dropped, both of which are paid into by the Corp, because they have the money to do that. So Valencia is stuck here with this one bad pub. All 3 mining accidents have been dropped. The Corp is just content to play this slowly. Their agenda density is probably very low. I have to assume the government takeover is in this deck. We've seen the space camp. We've seen, you know, the card that looks like government takeover, false flag. It just makes sense that there would be a red planet courier and a government takeover somewhere. Valencia runs R&D, runs into a Pharos, very high strength ice, gives the runner a tag. Valencia bounces, shakes the tag. The Corp drops a new card into server 1. Trick of Lights it twice. Could be the next sandbox, which would be a pretty good score right now. He's choosing which cards to remove the tokens from. Does it from the unknown card in the middle of server 1? No, but it's not a sandbox, just another off-world office. But still, points are points. Both players are now on game point. And even though the Corp had to spend several of their tokens and Trick of Light cards to do that, Off-World Office does gain them 7 credits on the score, still giving them enough money to play around with. Valencia runs HQ, sees an Aket. However, this is not triple advanced, which means the strength is rather low at 2, and both subroutines can be broken. Valencia still, though, just chooses to break one of the subroutines, allows the Corp to gain a credit and put an advancement token on something. Valencia passes, hits the slot machine, sees program hardware. So 2 subs are going to fire. Leech is going to drop the strength and allow Black Orchestra to break both of those subs for 3 credits. We're getting into HQ and seeing another Trick of Light. Oh man. We know already that 2 of those were used, so that's a 1 in 3 chance of encountering Trick of Light there. Rebirth finally shows itself. Valencia takes off her mask, and it's really Omar in disguise. Ooh, dirty. Omar run into archives, treated as a successful run into R&D. Turning wheel, spent to access 3 cards, but it's not even needed. The top card of R&D. No, sorry, it is needed. The second card of R&D is Off-World Office. That's the game-winning run. Good games on both sides. I think you really do have to expect the Omar out of Valencia, especially a Valencia that only has 6 cards left in her stack. You have to assume she's drawn Rebirth at that point. And I guess without knowing the specifics of the Corpse deck, I don't know if they should have taken this ice and put it in front of archives. I'm not saying that it would have necessarily even changed the game, the outcome of the game. Omar still might have been able to get through here, I'm not sure, depending on whatever the ice was. But if this Wayland deck runs Government Takeover, well, let's count the points here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So we're missing what? What's the size of this deck? 40. So it's 18 points. No. So we're only missing about 4 points. This isn't a government takeover deck. It just looks like the one with false flag. That's fantastic. So it looks like it's actually just a 4-2 deck that scores out using Trick of Light. A lot of 4-2s. Why the 4-2s? Why no Atlas? With Atlas, you could out of hand score Trick of Light. Maybe the other cards are Atlas. I'm not sure. But yeah, the Corp had plenty of money. Overall did pretty good. Was content to play patiently. I just think... I have to think then that this isn't a Red Planet Courier deck. And if that's the case... I don't know. I guess I understand the card being in the remote. You have to protect your scoring remote. But it was rough for them, right? Assuming that the rest of their cards are 4-2s, because there's probably one more sandbox. That's, you know what, that's probably where the missing 4 points are. One more sandbox, one more corporate sales team. So they couldn't fast advance out of hand the last card, because you need 2 Tricks of Light to do that. I don't know how I feel about that. The fact that this deck uses Trick of Light, but runs 4-2s? With Trick of Light, you really want to run 3-2s. I think that's ultimately what lost them the game. If they had 3-2s instead, they could have Tricked the Light. They stood the chance to Trick of Light the cards right out of server 1. Or any server, really. And they could have afforded to put more ice in front of archives. On the flip side, you could argue that they wouldn't have had as much money, though. Because these off-world offices scored them 14 credits. And they only have 8 now. Yeah, just stuff to think about. Not my deck, so I don't know its inner workings, but was still a lot of fun to see. Alright, we see Hoshiko Shiro versus Sync. Sync's been a little popular tonight. Perhaps it's because of the inclusion of Ping. We're on what looks like turn 2. Spin Doctor revealed. Drawing 2 cards. Why was Spin Doctor revealed at the end? Oh, no. It was revealed at the beginning of the Corpse turn, more or less. It's just that Hoshiko lost her Maho Shoujo status, probably because she didn't make a successful run. Alright, Spin Doctor popped to shuffle Hedge Fund and Rashida back into R&D. New card dropped into server 1, and an upgrade on R&D. What upgrade would NBN put on R&D? Could be one of the new ones. Double click for credit. What's Hoshiko looking for? That's not hedge fund money. You would only click once for that. Poemo going to offset the install cost of anything that isn't a connection. Card in server 1 was revealed to be a Rashida. That's revealed after Hoshiko spends her final 2 clicks also clicking for credits. Just needs money, apparently. Rashida giving Sync plenty of forward tempo. Sync itself has plenty of money here. Government subsidy. That's the reprint of Restructure. Only it's a Wayland card costing 1 influence outside of Wayland. Rashida, Hedge Fund, all of these cards giving Sync the ability to boost up to 22 credits. And then they drop a card, Unknown Ice, on the scoring remote. Hoshko kind of showing why they were clicking up for credits last turn. Although they didn't need those last 2 credits. A little odd. That's fine. They drop Liberated. Double click for Liberated money and run Archives to trigger their ID ability. New card in server 1 advanced. And then a credit gained. It's a dangerous game you play against NBN. Constantly a balance against trying to figure out if you're going to get tagged or traced or whatnot. Hoshko decides to play it safe, takes the liberated account money, and installs another liberated account. Double advance of the card in server 1 shows itself to be a tomorrow's headline, giving Hoshko a tag. We'll to see if the runner realizes that they took one from the scoring of that agenda. Replaced by another unknown card. Passed back over to Hoshko. She draws twice. Is she going to shake the tag? She really needs to shake that tag, otherwise she's going to lose the liberated. Dirty Laundry run on Archives. Tag shook. Rashida revealed to be the card in server 1. More forward momentum. But there are 4 cards in HQ, which means 1 at the very least is going to be pitched. Unless some fancy footwork is done. Government subsidy. Gaining even more money. Economic warfare played against the runner, but it's only 4 credits. 4 credits can be a lot. When the runner has 22, it's a little bit less. Compared to the total sum of the amount of money they have. And a new card, again, put in server 1. When you see economic warfare in a deck, you know they're trying to drop your money for a successful trace. Hoshko not having any of it, though, just continues to gain money. We see nothing on the table as far as breakers yet. Makes sense, though. They're bin breakers. But, like, no permanent cards here except Poemu. But I don't think it matters. Hoshko understands she just needs to have money so that when she needs to actually go and do things, she has the money to do it. You know what? We see a double advance card in server 1. She's going to completely ignore it and go straight into R&D. With a Stargate. Funhouse revealed. Ugh. That's a rough card to see on R&D, especially when you want to run it several times. Funhouse, the new replacement for Data Raven, basically is the exact same card, except instead of a Trace 3 for a token that gives a tag, it's just the runner takes a tag unless they pay 4. So Hoshko takes a tag, pays the 4 into Funhouse. The upgrade is a Chrysium Grid, so the run on this server isn't considered successful, which means the Stargate run doesn't do anything. So instead it's just treated as a normal run in R&D. Top card of R&D is seen. Chrysium Grid trashed. Tag is shaken. Down to 18 credits, but Corp is also down to 16. Recognizing the threat of Stargate, a new piece of ice is added to R&D to dissuade repetitive runs, as if Funhouse alone wasn't bad enough. Future Stargate runs are far less likely now. Card in server 1 is advanced again. Could be a Beal for the over advance. We'll have to wait and see. Nice. Docklands Pass. This is another card I made a big deal about in an earlier stream that I need to correct myself for. Docklands Pass is unique. You can only have one installed at a time, so it's not strictly better than HQ Interface. It's just a cheaper kind of HQ Interface, but you can only have one of them installed. Anyway, so runs on HQ are going to see 2 cards instead of 1. Imp dropped. Doesn't matter, the card in server 1 is actually a Bologna. Credit neutral score, making sure the corp isn't losing tempo on that. Replace immediately by another card. This could be the game-winning card if it's a 3-2. Hoshko in a tough spot. Stargate run didn't pay off. Chrysium Grid prevented that. Funhouse and another piece of ice, making future runs less likely. Card in server 1 either has to just be given up or contested. It will be the end of the game if it's an agenda, a 3-2. Could be a Beal. We haven't seen any yet. Alright, we are going to contest this server. Double draw into a click for a credit into an overclock. Alright, we're going to have to see how the corp responds to this. If this is an agenda, they may want to res all of this ice to make it as expensive as possible for the corp to get through. However, there's no res on the outermost piece of ice, perhaps not wanting to give away valuable information. Now, ping is very easy to get through. It's only a single credit with Paperclip. Although because it was rezzed on Hoshko's last turn, that's going to immediately be a tag. Paperclip installed using overclock money. Both pings broken. So as far as real credits go, Hoshko still has plenty. Plenty to fight hard-hitting news, anything like that. Even if the corp drops, you know, economic warfare, probably still not going to matter. Hoshko does get in though, sees Rashida Jahim. And even though that you would have much rather seen an agenda there, that's still okay. You're getting rid of one of the ping effects. You're getting more information because now you know what the second piece of ice is, and you prevent the Rashida fire. And you have a safe number of credits against things like hard-hitting news. Now, we do see the economic warfare, but again, she's not in hard-hitting news danger. Economic warfare used, new card dropped in server 1 and click for a credit, pass back over to the runner. She is in Maho mode. So she's going to lose a credit and draw a card. She's got that tag. Clicks for 2 credits and actually makes the run in server 1. Feeling the pressure, she has to contest this. Otherwise, she's just guessing that the card isn't an agenda, which is not something she can really afford to do. But this server is not expensive to get through. Magnet revealed, she installs Black Orchestra, she's over MU, decides to trash the Stargate. That makes a lot of sense. Probably not going to get a lot of value out of Stargate in the future. Whereas Imp, giving you those free trashes, is going to be pretty tasty. Breaks Magnet for 3, breaks pings, both pings for 2 altogether. So for 5 credits now, sans the install cost, she can get through this entire server. Sees a Bologna, is going to have to pay into the Bologna if she wants to steal it, but if she does, she leaves herself open to hard-hitting news. It's a tough choice. You don't necessarily need to steal this. You could trash it with Imp. I think that's probably the right call. I think you Imp this. Yep. And that is going to be an Imp. Trash into archives. So if Sync wants that back, they're either going to have to filter it back with Spin Doctor, or maybe they run Archive Memories, although we haven't seen that. Pretty good move. Again, Hoshko did that because she can't afford to steal Bologna, potentially opening herself up to the third economic warfare, in addition to the hard-hitting news. The Corp's still going to go for it anyway, installs a card in server 1, clicks for a credit, and drops the hard-hitting news. Pays 7 to increase the trait strength to 11. That's going to make sure that that sticks. But the Corp is kind of poor now. Down to 5 credits. Hoshko can't fight the trace, so she's stuck with 4 extra tags. And at this point, she's going tag me, which I think makes a lot of sense. If she shakes the tags, and this card in server 1 is the agenda, she just loses. So she's going into HQ, probably looking for the boom. Slot Machine Resed sees 3 different cards, so only forces like 3 credit loss on the side of the runner. Finds the boom in HQ, trashes it. More than likely, there's that weird art again. More than likely, Sync only runs 1 copy of boom. It's possible Sync runs 2. In which case, they just credit boom. But Hoshko got a little bit lucky there. I guess she did have the Docklands pass. Second card accessed from HQ was a Bologna. She imps that. So there are 2 Bolognas in the bin. Technically not enough points for Hoshko to win, though. Even if she had the money to take them. But the Corp installs a card in server 1, does not boom. So I think at this point we know that they don't have another boom in hand. Otherwise they just would have played it. So the Corp is kind of in a tricky spot. The runner is lousy with tags right now, but they can't really do anything about it. Unless they find a way to get that boom back in hand. We know they run Spin Doctor. It's very possible one of these cards is a Spin Doctor, or it could simply be the game-winning agenda. Hoshko clicks for some money after having dropped a Hippo, and is going to Dirty Laundry into server 1. And this makes a certain amount of sense. She's going to Hippo the Magnet, pay 2 credits to get through the pings, and is going to have just enough money to do this. Potentially seeing an agenda here. It is a Project Beal. Finally, she gets on the board. She's playing this very well. What's this face down card? What do we see here? What's the face down card in server 1? Do we not access it? Anyway. I think technically you have to access all cards, right? But that's fine. Whatever it was, she probably can't trash it, since it would need a trash cost of 0. But she gets the 5 credits back from the Dirty Laundry run. The remote is much easier to get into now. And the Corp is kind of biting their nails. They have a very weak remote server. It's true that R&D is protected. HQ is fairly well protected as well. But what do they do? Now, Hoshko here is losing a credit a turn. And that's due to the fact that they are in Maho Shoujo mode. But they're getting a free card draw each turn. So she clicks up for 3 credits, is sitting at 7, now has to make the decision. Does she go in to server 1 paying the 2 credits for potentially a non-agenda card, or does she bet on it being not an agenda and ignores it? She does not. She's going straight in. Pays the 2 credits to get in. And it is a spin doctor. But she's kind of forced to make these decisions because the Corp is on game point. If the Corp scores one of those 3 twos, it's game over. So unless she wants to take the risk that it isn't an agenda, she has to check the server, and she's made it quite cheap to do so. A click and 2 credits. Spin Doctor shuffles Bologna and Boom into R&D. Boom is really the scary one. And now the game becomes quite difficult for Hushko. Yes, our Corp is actually pointing out as well that the runner technically needs to access all the cards in server 1. Oh, and the runner's pointing out that for some reason Jinteki isn't allowing them to. You can't type in weird without weird popping up. That's great. Anyway. So what was a scenario that was actually kind of in the runner's favor, or at least they had a chance to wrest control of the game away from the Corp. Now they're a little bit at the Corp's mercy. The moment they're on a timer, the moment that Boom is drawn, the game's over. So Hushko has to find a way to either trash Boom again, which is going to be tough, or she has to score out. Interesting. Clicks for 2 credits and uses Poemu to offset the cost of the installation of Imp, and runs into server 1. I like it. This way, if we see another Bologna, we can trash it out of that server. Ah, but it is a Spin Doctor. Okay. That's okay. Good to get rid of that as soon as possible. Spin Doctor shuffles the last Bologna from Archives into R&D, as well as an unseen card. Sees a Prisek. And this is relevant because the Corp could have paid 2 credits to Prisek Hushko each time she ran the server, but for some reason the game wasn't letting her. We'll see if the runner wants to, if the Corp wants to fire this. Funnily enough, though, the Corp decided not to fire it, so I guess it doesn't really change the game state that much, if any at all. Imp used to trash that. I think that's wise. Although it does mean that the potential future Bologna trash out of server 1 is limited to just once. But I don't think that's what you're afraid of. I think you're just really afraid of the Boom. The moment Boom is drawn, this game is over. If I was a Corp, I'd just be drawing, I think. I think I would just draw for cards. Hushko can't steal 2 Bolognas unless she has 10 credits. I'm assuming there are 2 more Beals in this deck. Now she could score those, but she needs, even if she got both the Beals, she still doesn't win. I would just be slamming that R&D right now. No, why are you hedge funding? You just need Boom. Boom wins him the game. Hushko can't do anything about 7 meat damage. 4 clicks? That would draw you through 33... Sorry, 4 clicks. What am I saying? Corp doesn't get 4 clicks. 3 clicks. 3 clicks would draw you through 25% of your deck. 25% closer to your win condition. But okay, we see a hedge fund, a click to draw, and playing Retribution. Play only if the runner is tagged. Trash one installed program or piece of hardware. That's that new Wayland card. What did we trash? Trash the paper clip. I don't know how I feel about trashing the paperclip. I think you would want to trash the Docklands Pass. Because Paladin Poemu is just going to generate tokens to install that paperclip again. But the Docklands Pass prevents runs into HQ that potentially hit your boom if you draw it on your last click. I don't know. Plus, I don't even know. Playing the Retribution, I don't know if that's really the right call at all. Yeah, it only set the runner back 2 credits. But what's done is done. Ping is rezzed, gives the runner a tag, but that doesn't really matter. Funhouse is basically a completely porous piece of ice now, because it just gives the runner 2 tags, but they do not care about tags anymore. So it's 1 credit to get into R&D. Whatever the top card of R&D was... Wait, what? For some reason, Hoshko paid to break Funhouse. I don't know why. That was definitely a bad move. It's going to be 3 credits less that she has to play around with. Yeah. Anyway, back to the corp. A card is installed in server 1. 3rd piece of ice added to R&D. Dirty Laundry going into server 1 makes sense. It could just be a Rashida. Which is, I'm actually guessing what it is. No, just a price tag. That makes sense. Oh, you know, actually, trashing the price tag, I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier. Trashing the price tag isn't as big of a deal, because it just deals meat damage. You don't really care about the tag anymore. And Hoshko isn't going to die from single damage, meat damage right now. She probably shouldn't have imped that last price tag. I think even I made that mistake, and I'm commenting. I don't even have to think about how to play the game. But like, you see price tag and you just want to trash it. You like want to get rid of it. But if you're going tag me, price tag isn't that big of a deal. So it's kind of 2 errors so far. Okay, so run into IP block. IP block now has to be broken, although thankfully it's only 3 credits to do so with paperclip. Ping is a single credit. Okay, now I hope... No! Stop breaking Funhouse. Why are you breaking Funhouse? She runs into Funhouse again and breaks it. Sees a card off the top of R&D, doesn't do anything with it. She definitely needs to stop breaking Funhouse. 15 minutes scored. More fancy card art. But yeah, am I missing something huge here? What Funhouse, the subroutine is just give the runner 1 tag, unless they pay 4 credits. The Hoshko does not care about tags right now. Anyway, she runs in slot machine, which I guess you can't lose money if you don't have money. Access is Project Beal. Second access is Turnpike. And again, I think this is why the Corp, if the Corp is going to use Retribution at all, I think he definitely should have used it on the Docklands Pass. Or maybe even the Imp. Was the imp installed then? I know the Docklands Pass wasn't actually what got Hoshko that Beal, since it was the first access. But with only a slot machine in front of HQ, if Hoshko has 0 credits, she can run into HQ as if there's nothing there. I mean, I guess you give the Corp 3 credits if you reveal 2 of the same subtype, but that's the only thing she needs to be afraid of. Anyway, the Corp finally starts doing what they need to be doing, which is drawing. They draw 3 cards. I'm assuming the first 2 weren't boom. And now Hoshko has to try and guess. Was the 3rd card drawn boom? Or is boom on the top of R&D? I think what makes sense is you check R&D first, and then go into HQ. No! You check... see, but Slot Machine is going to lose her money. And Ashley's not going to have enough money to check R&D. But okay. So we're going into HQ first. We reveal hardware resource program. So we lose 3 credits. Hit a turnpike and a Bologna. Imps a Bologna. And now if Hoshko clicks for 3 credits, she'll lose 1 on the next turn, and then click for 3 more credits and run archive. She wins. Yeah. She just needs to click for 1 more credit. There we go. Okay. So we trashed the Bologna. Even though I think this was the wrong choice, it's still going to work for her. Imps the Bologna. Next turn. Next turn she wins, unless that happens. Boom used. Makes sense. Oh, an exchange of information. So actually, even if... That makes sense now. I wondered why that 15 minutes was scored. But if exchange of information was available, that makes a lot more sense. So even if the turn went over to Hoshko and she clicked for 3 credits and ran archives, she still would have been down 1 point. The 15 minutes exchange of information interaction is always rough. At that point, she would have had to hope the Corp didn't draw boom and try to run HQ for another Beal, I think. Yeah, the last Beal. So even though it looked like Hoshko had a shot there, I think the Corp had it. They could have been fine a couple more turns. But consulting visit pulls boom out of R&D, which is kind of funny since R&D only had 3 cards in it to begin with. Sometimes the single card you need is right on the bottom. Not much you can do about it then. Yeah, all of this was pretty interesting. This was a fun game. I definitely think that you should not break Funhouse if you're going Tag Me. If you're going Tag Me, Funhouse is a completely blank ice. But even if she had run R&D, I don't think she could have won. Well, see, the thing is, though, sorry, there's so much to analyze. I'm thinking if she broke Funhouse twice. If she was up 6 credits, she could have scored that Bologna instead of imping it. It just would have won right there, wouldn't she? Because the Corp wouldn't have had the time to exchange of information. Yeah. Hoshko could have won. She hadn't broken Funhouse. Twice. Ah, You hate to see it. Well, that's Netrunner. Game is so fun and complicated, no one plays it perfectly. It's so easy for me to sit here and comment and be like, oh, they should have done this, oh, they should have done that. But when you're in the middle of it, it's a whole different game. Okay, Kumalo versus Saraswati. We're only on turn 2, and Saraswati has already given bacterial programming over to Kumalo. Not without getting to rearrange and trash the top 7 cards of their deck, though. Looks like they only trashed one of those cards. Rearrange the other 6. They put a piece of ice in front of HQ and a piece of ice in front of R&D. They have this strange double advanced card in server 2, passing it back over to Kumalo, who drops a Trapano in front of the ice in front of HQ. They also have a Fermenter. Again, kind of like a weird mix between Apex's Consume and Bankroll. So that's just going to generate tokens every time a card is trashed. No, sorry, what am I talking about? No, this just generates 1 virus token each turn, and then you can cash in on it when you want to. My apologies. Anyway, it's got 3 virus tokens on it now, so it could be cashed in for 6 credits, but you have to think you spent a click to install it and a credit as well. You probably want to use that more around the 4 or 5 range. Progenitor. A bit of a luxury to use in a virus deck, but if you can manage to get it down at the right time, it's very useful. Progenitor put down, followed by a Musashi. Now, I missed this. The last Corp turn actually was the triple advance of the Naked card, which ended up being an Obokata protocol. I don't know if I agree with the Virus Purge there. I think you maybe wait another turn for that. But they decided that that was their best course of action then. And this is why I don't really like the Virus Purge. It just gives a whole turn over to Kumalo, who runs Archives, pulls a Sting, loses their Caldera. Very surprising that anyone even runs this these days. I mean, it's not a useless card by any means, but I usually don't see it anymore. But I bet they would have been much happier having that in hand to use as a safety net. However, they lose it to a Sting, drop a Leech and a Satia, so the Corp is going to have to think twice about the next Purge, because the Satia is going to generate 2 credits for every, sorry, 1 credit for every virus token removed on the Purge. So right now that would be 4. 6 on the next runner's turn. The Corp uses Psychokinesis out of order, forgetting that it was a terminal card, which means it ends your turn. This isn't a card that gets used terribly often. Let's see here. Look at the top 5 cards of R&D. If any of those cards are agendas, assets, or upgrades, you can install one of those cards in a remote server. Looks like they installed a card in server 2. It's kind of a fast advance card. Kind of not. Kamala just runs Archives to generate tokens on Leech and Musashi. Runs it again. Generates even more tokens. Runs it a 3rd time. And this makes a lot of sense. Because if the Corp purges, they're just handing a ton of money over to Kamalo. Kamalo's okay with that. And if the Corp doesn't purge, well, they've got all these tokens to play with. Musashi going to be able to break killers. Leech dropping the strength of anything that's needed. A card is Saraswati'd into server 2. And the Corp takes 2 credits. Over to Kamalo. Kamalo hedge funds and then looks upon the vast plains of his potential conquest. Pops Fermenter just for the money. Not sure I agree with that. I think he could have waited on Fermenter. But perhaps he wants to set up for the next turn. The Corp advances the card in server 2. Takes 2 credits again. Kamala drops an imp. Draws up. Will they run server 2 now? Could be another Obokata there. Could be worth stealing. Could also be just a trap. It's tough. If it's the Obokata, it's really rough. Because Saraswati gets to be on game point then. If it's not the Obokata, running could be the wrong call. Kamala does decide to run. Sees a Hokusai grid. Oh, is this going to ping? Because a Hokusai is going to ping a 1 net damage, and that might be enough to prevent Kamalo from stealing this, if this is an Obokata. Now, this is going to drop the Corp down extremely low. Oh, but it's just a Gene Splicer. So this overall is going to deal 3 net damage to Kamalo. Kamalo does trash the Gene Splicer with Imp? What? What? Why did we trash that with Imp? Gene Splicer is just a single credit to trash. I feel like that probably should have been trashed just with money. Save the Imp token. But okay. And then Hokusai is trashed using Kamalo's ID ability. And a Purge on the side of the Corp is going to save their ice from Trapano. But it's also going to hand 11 credits over to Kamalo. And I think that's kind of the death sentence. I think the Corp loses now. They have nothing on their side of the table, aside from 2 pieces of ice unresed, one of them infested by a virus. They have 4 credits. 1 scored agenda that isn't giving them any abilities. Completely open archives. So Kamalo can just run right into archives again. Now, Cookbook put into play by Kamalo. That's going to make future virus cards start out with an extra token. The Corp double clicks and then Saraswati's. So what is this mystery card in server 3? Saraswati is such a bad ID. And what's even worse is that this isn't even an insult to the player playing it. I get it. Everyone plays bad IDs because they want them to work. But Saraswati truly is, or sorry, Saraswati truly is a terrible ID. The way its ID ability works, you can't even use it with NGO front. Because whatever card you Saraswati, you cannot score or res it until your next turn begins. Which means if it's an NGO front, you can't res it and pop it if the runner runs it. Anyway, apparently one of the cards installed was a Sting that is going to deal 2 net damage to Kamalo. Kamalo draws up twice, runs server 4, pulls the final Sting, is going to have to take 2 net damage to do that, but I'm sure he's more than happy to. Got plenty of cards left in the stack, 27. Kamalo, of course. Oh, for some reason I thought Kamalo had a deck size of 50. But no. Even Kamalo's running Tranquilizer. Ugh. Tranquilizer in combination with Tripano. Man. It's a lot. And he's able to do that because Musashi normally costs 2 MU per Progenitor. Makes it so that whatever card is installed does not count against your MU. Kamala runs Archives to check the face downs, as well as getting a token on Musashi and Leech, as well as triggering Knobkree's ability. Throws down a Fermenter, passes back over to the Corp, who loses, or has already lost, the card in front of HQ. Did they overwrite that? I didn't quite catch that. Anyway, the Trapanoed ice on HQ is no longer there. A new piece of ice is there instead. Kamala runs Archives, triggers Knobkree, drops the token on the ice in front of R&D. Simulchip was used at some point here. Actually just used now to reinstall the Trapano onto the ice in front of HQ without even having to encounter any ice. He's managed to trash and potentially trash everything. Saraswati's a card into server 5, clicks for 2 credits. Kamala runs into R&D. This is ultimately kind of what happens with most Saraswati decks. They have this ID ability that they want to use, so they Saraswati things, but it doesn't really do anything for them, and it loses them money, so they have to click up for credits. Although, funnily enough, card in server 5 was actually just a snare. So good on them. Playing a little bit of the mind games. Mind games beyond mechanical mind games, you generally wouldn't assume a snare would be advanced. They sold that very well. If they hadn't Saraswati did, I wonder if Kamala would have even ran it. But their ruse paid off, and wait, what? What just happened? Hold on here. So snare hit. Kamala shook the tag, passed it over to Saraswati. Saraswati played Hangeki. Hangeki. Play only if the runner trashed a corp card during his or her last turn. That did happen. Choose an installed corp card. The runner may access that card. If he or she does, remove Hangeki from the game instead of trashing it. Otherwise, add Hangeki to the runner's score area as an agenda -1 point. So I think they bluffed. That's exactly what they did. You know what? I can respect that. I can respect that a lot. Saraswati made a completely rational bluff, and for whatever reason, oh, you know what? I know why. They didn't have enough money. So Kamala said, go ahead, I'll access your card. I don't care. The reason they did that, though, Saraswati only had 3 credits. You need 4 to fire off snare. That was so close to working. I feel like if Saraswati had 4 credits after playing Hangeki, Kumala might have had to think twice before accessing that card. And I'm sorry, I'm not being 100% clear. Okay, so what happened is Longevity Serum was Saraswati'd on Saraswati's last turn. No, it wasn't. It was Saraswati this turn. Right, because the last Saraswati card was a snare and Kumalo accessed it. So Saraswati'd a card. All they had to do was click up for a credit for this ruse, but they forgot to. They played Hangeki, saying, go ahead, access this card that has 1 advancement token on it. It's super scary. If it's a snare, it'll kill you. You don't want that, right? Assuming the Kamala would add it as a card to their score area, worth -1, because they were bluffing that the Longevity Serum was a trap. Kamala said, that ain't no trap. And you know what? Even if it is, it's not going to kill me. So they accessed it, but it was actually an agenda. It wasn't a trap at all. The mind games were thick. But Kamalo either realized that Saraswati couldn't snare him, or saw through the bluff, or both. Accessed the card, it was an agenda, and the game ended. Not the ending I was expecting, but certainly a fun ending, all the same. Hangeki is a card that I've always seen, like, I love Jinteki, right? The Corp as a faction. So I've spent more time reading over their cards than any other corps. But Hangeki was always one I looked at and thought, seems like too much trouble. Like, no one's ever going to fall for that. But I love this. I love how this was used. I love that it was used as a double bluff. I think that's the part that impresses me the most. Because not only was it used on a card to scare the runner into taking Hangeki as a -1 agenda point, it wasn't even used on a trap. So theoretically, if Kumalo guessed that it was a trap and said, hey man, no, I can't hit another snare, you know what? You take that card. I'm not going to do anything with it. And so they took the Hangeki. Instead of being at 7 points, they'd be at 4. Kamala would leave this card alone because they thought it was a trap. Maybe they'd draw up and run it, like if they had 4 cards in hand or something. But there's a decent chance they just leave it alone. If they leave it alone, Saraswati can score it at their own convenience. It's kind of a double or nothing play. And again, I know I'm belaboring it, but I really like that. Oh my goodness. I've been talking about Netrunner for 3 hours. Oh, it's super late. At least it is here. I think it's going to do it for me tonight. Ton of fun. For any of you still watching, thank you so much for tuning in. It's always fun to just get together with Netrunner fans and talk about great games. Of course, even though they can't hear us, I'm always grateful and want to throw out a thanks for everyone who played. At any rate, there will probably be more Netrunner in the future. Otherwise, until then, catch you on the flip side, and good night.